Ready to go. Let's go, man. Let's get this game started, bro.
Get the game started. Blow the whistle. Show the world. Let's go tonight.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back for another episode of The Cut. I'm your host, Christian Williams, and I am here with Randy Hall. Randy, how are you, dude?
I'm good. Glad to be back. Got an ultra busy week, but glad I got plenty of time to do this today.
Yeah, it's definitely a crazy week for me as well. At my work, it's the first day of swim lessons. I forgot. I walked into an absolute shit show this morning, so glad to be talking football for sure. And it's been it feels like it's been a year. It's been like 2 weeks since we were last recording a podcast, but it feels like so long. Do you agree with that?
100%. I literally had to triple check all last week that we were on the right week. It felt like a whole month.
I know. But I'm excited. So before we get into our ADP buy or sell and our Dynasty quarterback rankings, we do have some housekeeping notes. As always, please follow us all the places at The Cut FFB, Facebook, Instagram. I don't give a shit if you follow us on Instagram. And then Twitter, of course, at The Cut FFB, like I said. Content is coming. I'm going to be working on the Carson Strong article here. I'm definitely going to be doing some more fantasy related things here in the near future. Randy, are you working on anything other than our rankings right now?
No. Well, just making all the show docs while I can. Keep it going, make sure we're all good. And then I'll start something else. Just got to finish all that first.
Yes. So those of you who are joining us, you'll notice this is our first live show where we're actually recording a podcast. We were doing the what's up, Jeff? We were doing hi Bob. I'm sorry, I missed yours. We were doing the Friday Fix episodes, but those weren't for the podcast. So we are planning to be live from here on out. It's kind of like a test run. If it doesn't really work out for us, we'll probably go back to audio only. But I did put out a poll, and people said that they like video content. I don't know why. I have a face for radio. Randy also does. So no offense, Randy. We're ugly, okay? But yeah, so we're going to try this live thing and go from there. Regarding the rest of our shows, though, so what we're going to be talking about, lots of things. So we're going to be going through our Dynasty rankings here in the very near future. We also have a divisional breakdown type of, I don't know what the series is going to be called yet, but we're going to be going through division by division, kind of talking through those teams, fantasy relevant questions, just some other things. And then probably giving some prediction, way too early prediction, stuff like that. But it's not just going to be all fantasy. We'll get into some scheme fits, some, defensive stuff. Randy, are you excited for those?
Oh yeah. It's the perfect blend. We're coming from the draft where it was all about real football, less about fantasy. Now we're trying to mix them both while we get back into the grind of fantasy as it gets closer to the season.
Yeah, for sure. And then as we get through those, there's going to be some 2022 NFL draft content. I think we'll get started on that a little earlier this year. Hopefully do a preview of some sort at some point this summer. I'll be pumping out those articles, though, because I'm already 65 evals in, preseason evals. So I'm going to start working on some content for that. And then we'll also be doing some fantasy mock drafts. I know everyone's doing mock drafts right now. There are a lot of Dynasty startups happening right now. But we will be doing them throughout the summer, intermittently, stuff like that. Randy, is there anything you want to add to this section?
No, let's get going.
Good stuff. So we're going to jump right into our ADP buy or sell. Now, these ADPs come from a variety of different places. It's looking like we mainly pulled from fantasy data, mixed them. Fuck, it's been way too long. And then it's crazy because I have a show on Tuesdays too. It's not like I haven't fucking talked. And then we also pulled from Sleeper. So lots of varying ADPs. I know Sleeper's ADP is sometimes questionable, but they did put out an update recently saying that they updated the ADP. So I thought it's pretty trustworthy, I would say. Would you agree, Randy?
Yeah. I mean, most people have switched to Sleeper at this point. A lot of starts are happening, a lot of rookie drafts, obviously. So the ADP is getting a little bit closer. As long as they keep updating it, it's going to be better. That was the problem last summers. They just didn't update it after like May. And we're all like, well, why is Juju still wide receiver like 100? What's going on?
Yeah.
Ironically.
Yeah. I forgot about that. And it was definitely Juju.
It was Juju. It was the
main problem. Yeah. Okay. So the first couple that we have are from fantasy data. Startup Dynasty ADP, Jonathan Taylor at the 104. Is this Superflex, Randy? Am I crazy? Okay.
It's what it said. We have two from fantasy data, and they were like the most egregious to me. And then we switched to Sleeper because fantasy data and fantasy football calculator and a couple other sources were giving like varying data. A couple of their dynasty rankings for startups didn't have like Devontae Adams on it. Didn't make sense. So I stopped looking at it.
Yeah. I used to go to fantasy data for a lot of things. Now I try to traditionally like look at Fantasy Pros. I know some people really go by DLF. Shout out Fantasy Pros. I should shout out my other employer. So the first one, Jonathan Taylor, 104 in Superflex leagues, RB3. How do you feel about this, Randy? Do you think that's too high, too low? Because I mean, some people have him at RB1.
I get it. And it's also just not what I like to do. It's a guy that was dead to fantasy Twitter about week 10. Last year, came on strong against some weak competition down the stretch. And people are giving that excuse for guys like David Montgomery, saying he shouldn't be that high, but we're not doing it for Jonathan Taylor. It needs to be counterbalanced. He had a weak schedule, and he played incredible against it. Now he has to contend with Nyheim Hines yet again, and Marlon Mack, who came back, and they are going to use him. They like Mack. It's going to save Taylor a bit, but if you get some usage down and you get some bad matchups, I just don't think you're going to get a return on investment at that high. I get it's a dynasty startup. You go with a young guy, but would you rather take him at 104 or Nick Chubb at the turn of the second round?
I'd rather Chubb. I think
exactly. That's my point. I think it's kind of the same usage is what I'm expecting, and obviously Chubb kills it every year. It's not saying Jonathan Taylor won't be an RB1. He probably will be. I'm just saying it might be slightly rich for my blood.
Yeah, and I know I don't think we'll talk about Nick Chubb here tonight, but just a sidebar about him. I know people get worried about Kareem Hunt there, but then if you're worried about Kareem Hunt, why are you not worried about Nyheim Hines, who actually finished like right around where Kareem Hunt did last year? And people talk about, well, his usage wasn't the same when Jonathan Taylor came on at the end of the year. It wasn't, but that's because it was against defenses that they could run all over. So Nyheim Hines didn't need to be out there. So in games that they were down, Nyheim Hines is still going to be out there, in my opinion.
I believe the toughest on-paper defense Taylor faced on the stretch would be the Steelers, but at that point, it was the Steelers without Bud Dupree, without their middle linebackers, like without a couple guys. It's a little bit decrepit for what they were at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, and I'll be quite frank. We'll go over our dynasty running back rankings, but I do not have Jonathan Taylor at 3. I have him a little lower, so I think that's rich. And I get going to get your guy, and like I said, some people have him at RB1, and good for you. You're wrong, but good for you. I like your process, but I don't like the result. So yeah, we'll move on to the next one. T. Higgins. This might be outdated too. This might be pre-NFL draft. I hope.
It said updated May like 20th on Fantasy Data or something like that.
That's
and it's a little bit better on sleeper ADP, but it's still relatively high for this guy.
Okay. So T. Higgins, 20th overall, gross, and then wide receiver 7 might be grosser. That might be worse. Randy, how do you feel about this? I give a little preview. Do you remember where you have him ranked?
Nowhere near that. It's definitely like 30s. And there's no disrespect, but like Jamar Chase is better than him
by a lot.
Yeah, it's definitely 30, maybe on the nose. It's somewhere right around there. It's an egregious number for Higgins, and I do think that Sleeper's ADP was slightly more helpful, but it's still ultra high for him. I think in Sleeper, Jamar Chase is slightly ahead of him, but he's still it's close. So in Sleeper ADP, he's wide receiver 23 at 65.
Okay.
That makes some sense to me. But it's still slightly high for me. It's a guy that's automatically wide receiver 2 on his team, if not wide receiver 3 at times, with Tyler Boyd being ultra effective. I'm just fading T. Higgins. It's not a knock on him at all. It's just.
So here's the thing with T. Higgins. I didn't like him pre-draft. I thought he was overrated. I thought he was overdrafted, though him falling to the second round was reasonable. Like when he was getting mocked in the first round, that's when I really didn't like him. But we know how I felt about T. I didn't think he did much special. He came out, he proved me a little bit wrong there in his rookie year, which good for him. But now he's back to being what he's good at, which is a secondary option. And at times, like you said, a tertiary option. He's going to be the third target at times, maybe even fourth, because spoiler alert, guys, Joe Burrow still doesn't have a great offensive line. Like they drafted a shitty offensive tackle that they're moving into guard. And he's probably going to be a better guard than he was a tackle, but he probably still isn't going to be good because he has slow feet and he's not very strong and blah, 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 blah. So Joe Burrow still doesn't have an offensive line, which means the dump downs to Joe Mixon. And yes, it's going to be Joe Mixon, which we will talk about him shortly, because Gio Bernard is gone and they really didn't fill that role. Those are going to be more, those are going to be more prevalent. I still think that Boyd and Mixon are getting the bump here with Jamar Chase there. And T. Higgins is not going to keep up what he did. And I know that AJ Green had 100 targets last year and Jamar Chase probably steps right into 100 targets and T. Higgins was still productive. But, if the Bengals do perceive that they do have a better offensive line, which they probably do, they probably like Jackson Carman or they wouldn't have drafted him, then they're going to run the ball more and you're not going to see, 700 pass attempts in the new 17-game season. So I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
Not at all.
All right, let's zip through some of these sleeper ones. Which one do you want to talk about first?
I say we just go through the receivers first.
Sounds good. All right. So first on the list, DeAndre Hopkins, overall 21st overall pick, wide receiver 7 off the board. I want to lead off with, I think that's pretty good value. I know DeAndre Hopkins is an older guy, but I just want to reference my one tweet. I quote tweeted Anthony Amico, who said that ranking Travis Kelce as your tight end 1 is crazy when he's going into his age 32 season. I'm playing Dynasty for 2 to 3 years. I'm trying to win every year. You treat it like redraft, you try to win. That's my mentality. Some people might be different. DeAndre Hopkins went out and he proved me wrong last year, and so I think this is good value for him. What say you?
Yeah, I think it's definitely like buy. I think it's almost perfect. I believe we both have him around this wide receiver ranking when they're going to come out on a couple shows. But I think he might. It's just one of those things where I wish he was still got a little bit higher because he's still an ultra superior talent. He's the dominant wide receiver one of his team. Obviously, if they trade for Julio, which is probably not going to happen, but if they somehow do, his targets are going to go down, rightfully fucking so. But
Right.
I think this is still a buy for me. He's just so goddamn good. He's not old. He's done it with every quarterback, good or bad. He's got a good one. An offense that got another weapon in Rondale Moore, so it should be even better. I'm expecting another 2 to 3 years of big things from DeAndre Hopkins, and probably further than that, honestly.
I'm more of the 2 to 3 years, but we know how I felt about him last year, and I think Rondale does take some of like his. I wouldn't say he takes his targets away. I think he takes some of the targets. I also think that Cliff Kingsbury's done after this year. We've talked about this. We talked about it on the Friday Fix. If they don't make the playoffs, he's got to be, and Keim has to go too. And so then what happens? Yeah, you're still going to get an air raid system there, right? I mean, you kind of have to with Kyler and that receiving core.
Yeah,
right?
but you also might incorporate more of a 50-50 split where it's not really. I know Kenyon Drake ended up like top 10 in attempts by the end of the season, but obviously there was a couple of games where Kyler couldn't run the ball, so his numbers were a little bit inflated.
Right.
It's just the air raid system. It's going to work with these guys. It just has to. I don't see how it doesn't. And they improved the line slightly, so I'm pretty excited for that offense just entirely.
Boy, I can't wait to watch Kyler slide down so he's avoiding his sacks all the time still. All right, next guy. We mentioned Julio Jones. We're not going to talk about him, but we're going to talk about one of the potential destinations for Julio in the Cleveland Browns with Odell Beckham Jr. He's being drafted at 75th overall, wide receiver 29. I think that's harsh, personally. I think, we're a few years removed, and I know it's been a few. It's been quite a while since Odell Beckham was a wide receiver one. I understand that. I also think that him and Baker haven't connected well. I think they will. Call me crazy, but I think Odell Beckham is too good to fail in Cleveland with Baker Mayfield, who is also very good. I have him ranked higher than this. Again, I don't want to spoil our whole wide receiver show here, but you think that that's a little too low for Odell too, right?
100%. This is an immediate buy for me. He's a guy that's going to be a wide receiver 2 for your team, most likely. And by most likely, I mean I think he's going to have wide receiver 1 weeks. He hasn't really been given a full shot with Baker. I think Odell can truly, with a whole preseason under their belts, I think he can truly unlock the next level of this Browns offense. I've already talked about that before. I think he just puts Baker in the upper echelon, puts him on that QB1 train that we were hoping for last year, and we saw different stretches. He's going to be very, very good. And if you can get him for wide receiver 3 price, and he's going to be a wide receiver 2 for you, you got to take that every day of the week.
Dude, maybe 1. And we've talked about this. We'll talk about it on the wide receiver show. I'm positive of it, but I think if Odell was in the Jarvis role, it's over for fantasy. I think that is like top 5 wide receiver worthy. If Jarvis can get 1,000 yards in that offense, imagine what Odell could do with all that yak opportunity.
I do think, we're going to figure it out this year. I think he plays the full year. I think the offseason helps everyone, and we'll see how it goes. But I think there's going to be a lot of people ultra happy that they have Odell on their team.
Yeah, for sure. I made a trade for him last year, and I'm holding out hope. It's my only share, but I'm excited for it.
I don't have any shares, unfortunately.
Well, I have one if you want it. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not selling. Okay, next wide receiver, and we probably won't go over all of these guys, but I do want to touch on Corey Davis. We're going to skip Cooper Kupp here. Sorry, we'll talk about him in the wide receiver episode. Corey Davis, overall, 110th overall pick, wide receiver 46. I guess, do you think Corey Davis is the wide receiver 1 for the Jets?
I kind of do.
So do I.
I really, I understand that they have Elijah Moore, but that's a little bit muddy in that water with Jameson Crowder still around, and I just think he's signed there to be the wide receiver one. He's going to work on the outside. I think he's going to have an immediate connection with Zach Wilson, and they're going to kill it. I mean, this isn't like egregious where he's landing for my rankings, but after I saw it, I quickly was like, shit. I know the wide receiver rooms are stacked, and it's very hard to rank these wide receivers because of that, but I think he's going to be a guy that I try and get on my teams and any startups I do, because I am always been a heavy advocate. Everyone that's played with me knows this, of getting like 7 running backs first and figuring everything else out later. I know I'm definitely not doing that exactly, but I definitely lean on back-to-back running backs, even 3 straight running back picks in a lot of leagues. And if you're telling me I can then turn around and get Odell, Cooper Kupp, and Corey Davis, 2 of the 3 as my wide receiver 1 and 2, I mean that's enticing me to be reckless even more.
Yeah, and I don't even hate it, dude. I'm kind of with you where, I think Zach Wilson needs a guy like Corey Davis more than he needs a guy like, Jamison Crowder, I guess, or Elijah Moore, whoever ends up winning that job. So I mean, like you said, he's close to that in my rankings, but I still think Corey Davis is the one. He's one of the more disrespected guys, and you were part of that last year. Not disrespecting, but to the point where, like, I think we forget that Corey Davis had a wide receiver 2 season, like his second year, and then obviously he got worse. But
he, with the growth of A.J. Brown, he was able to truly become what he is. And I think he's going to get that on the Jets with the litany of passing options there already. I don't think you could just key in on Corey Davis. And honestly, I don't know why you would as a defense. Like, I don't know why you'd only take away Corey Davis when he's not DeAndre Hopkins. You don't try and take away Corey Davis, you try to take away Hopkins. There's a clear pecking order of that kind of thing. And with the Jets offense, I think they're just going to send pressure because it's a rookie. That's going to happen a lot. So there will be dump downs, and maybe he gets used less in some games than he does others. But there's definitely wide receiver 1 upside certain weeks with Corey Davis.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let's move on to a few running backs here. First one is Clyde Edwards-Helaire, overall 41, RB 14. This is coming off of what I would say was a disappointing end to his season, or, most of his season. He was drafted as the rookie RB1 over Jonathan Taylor in spots. People got enamored with the landing spot. And this is just a quick reminder that talent over opportunity. I think that's a good time to plug that. But at RB14, you're still looking at like RB1 week upside. Randy, how do you feel about Clyde Edwards-Helaire in that spot?
He is on that. I think it's right where he should be. He's on that fringe of being RB1 for the next 2 or 3 years. I'd say 3 years because, 3 years
4.
because they probably wouldn't pick up his option. We'll see how that goes. But it's the only reason I have that he's falling slightly under like RB1 territory is because he has like 2 guys, 3 guys that are fighting for competition. We don't know exactly how the pecking order is going to work out. We know he's going to be at the top, but is it going to be like 40%, 25%, 20%, 5, is it going to be a 4-way timeshare? Is it just going to be 2 and he's just working out with him? Is he getting the majority of the dump downs? Because Mahomes does dump down a good amount. It's nowhere near like Ben Roethlisberger or Phillip Rivers, but he still could be efficient in that regard. And to be an RB1, you really need to be a pass-catching back and get some good work on the ground, unless you're Derrick Henry, who just gets the most carries you could ever think of. That's the only way you can only do one of the 2 and be an RB1. So I think this is a buy still for me. And if you want to, like, if you're one of the people that has to draft a QB first round in a super flex startup, this is a good sign because you're able to wait to late round 3, round 4, actually, sorry, and get Clyde Edwards-Helaire and a couple other guys that we're going to talk about here and be pretty set at running back still.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of with you. The only part that I would question is I know he's a capable pass catcher, but Mahomes is such a capable passer that he never really has to dump down. He's always keeping his eyes downfield, so that worries me a little bit. I think they scheme it up a little bit for him this year.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I think he's going to get like 65% of the work, and he's going to be on the fringe every single week, and he's going to be the RB1 a couple weeks, and it's going to carry him.
Yeah. All right. Next up, we have the ever divisive Miles Sanders, overall 36, RB12 off the board. I'll just be upfront. This is a sell for me, and I don't like it because Miles Sanders was my RB1 in that class. I had him over Josh Jacobs. But everything that the Eagles have done has indicated to me that they want to put as many bodies in that running back room as they can, and they're going to I think it's going to be more of a hot hand situation. Now, don't get me wrong. Miles Sanders with Jalen Hurts was very, very good towards the end of the season, and that's who their quarterback is. So I guess my ranking of him, it's a sell for me because that's his absolute ceiling, in my opinion, at this point, with how many bodies they've put in that room.
Yeah, so there's a lot of intrigue over Sanders because of Peterson being gone. Many people attribute his struggles last year to just being Peterson, and people that also pair that with the offensive line injuries are correct. They get all those people back, and their line got better. Obviously, they got Landon Dickerson to be guard for them, so they should be relatively really good and healthy on the offensive line, and have a running quarterback, which usually equates to the running back losing a couple touches but having bigger holes because you have to worry about the quarterback. There's not as much crashing going on. So I think he's going to still be really good, but the thing, he's close to here for me. I still think it's kind of a sell, only for the fact that, like you said, they are adding so many bodies to the room. It's probably going to end up being a roster of him, Kenny Gainwell, and Kerryon Johnson after we get some cuts here and there. I think that's where I think that's going to be their stable. And that's bad because you have 3 really capable backs. Obviously, Sanders is the best of the group, but that doesn't mean anything. I still think he gets plenty of work every week. He has been injured here and there. It's just when you have that kind of bodies in the room situation, you might be able to trade him and get a guy a little bit down the list, maybe like Eckler, and like a 3rd-round pick back or so. I mean, it's one of those things where you might be able to maneuver him to get a better situation. Yeah,
and we also have to remember, I mean, that's a good room right there, but I think they brought in Jordan Howard again, and I know it's a different coaching staff at this point, but it's not a different GM, so I don't know. It's kind of scary business there with Miles Sanders, but like you said, still the most talented. You still bet on talent. It's just I don't want to bet on it if that's the ceiling, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's one of the more accurate rankings, but I figured with a lot of the excitement going around, I figured he needed to be talked about.
For sure. Next up, Joe Mixon, overall 56, RB19. That's egregious to me.
Honestly, let's just add in Eckler as well, right next to him, overall 58, RB20. I think both of these are almost egregious. Yes. Mixon definitely more because he's definitely in more of a workhorse, not house role. And with Bernard gone, who was the only guy effectively taking any touches from him being healthy, people are rocking on Mixon because he didn't get shut down like Barkley, like McCaffrey. We kept getting the teases. People are pissed off about Mixon. Get him at the fucking discount. He is not RB19. He's an RB1.
He is. Yeah. He's the best workhorse that you'll get in that area. And you can make the argument too with Eckler that like because of what that offense should look like this year, which I guess we don't really know what it's going to look like. But Austin Eckler is close to a workhorse. They didn't really add much to that backfield. I think They drafted what? Larry Roundtree?
They have
on.
2 better guys in the system right now than Roundtree, so
Yeah.
I don't really count him.
Right.
He got the job done with Melvin Gordon. He is the clear lead back. He just needs a guy or two that's going to take away like 30% of snaps so he can get a rest so he doesn't get hurt. I mean, that's what we're looking at here. Eckler's going to kill it. Mixon's going to kill it. These guys are severely underrated, and I am. Oh my God, am I targeting them everywhere?
Oh yeah. This right here makes me want to get into a startup right now and just.
We've been talking about it, so.
I know. We're trying to figure out what kind of startup. And the last thing I want to say about Eckler, I know there was, I think Michelle Madzuk, Ball Blast him. She put out there that Austin Eckler could finish top 5. That's not outlandish. Like, I won't rank him there for Dynasty because I don't know how sustainable it is, but he could absolutely be a top 5 running back in 2021, in my opinion. So
yeah, it's very, very possible. There's like a consideration of who's going to be top 3, and then past then, I'm kind of just up in the air about who's going to land 4 through like 14.
You're right. Yeah, there's a lot of top end talent, and part of that top end talent, kind of, definitely a top end like handcuff / still valuable /
flex.
Very
flex.
Yeah, just straight up flex. Kareem Hunt, overall 98, RB 26. This is a buy for me as well. Kareem Hunt showed us last year that he can be the RB2 for a team and still finish as a high RB2. I don't have his finish right in front of me. I know Nick Chubb was out for 4.5 weeks. But Kareem Hunt was also out for 1 or 2 of those weeks, and Dearness Johnson was the man. But
so
Kareem
Hunt last year actually finished higher than his last year in Kansas City. He finished as 10.
Yeah, absurd. This Browns offense, and I'm sure we'll get to talk about that when we do our divisional breakdowns. This Browns offense should put up just like 1 million points. 1 million points a game. It's loaded. They have speed all over now with Odell coming back, with Shorts coming in. And so then you're opening up more running holes for Chubb and Hunt, and they'll both get work. And so Kareem Hunt as an RB3, that's almost as egregious as Mixon and Eckler to me, because I think his range of outcomes starts as an RB1, right?
Yeah, I mean, he finished 10 last year, and I know he had 4.5 games by himself, really. But even those,
3.5.
I was gonna say, even like the first, like, he was also injured to start Chubb's injury, so he played like 40 to 50%. And he still is RB10. He gets it done through the air. They're a lethal team. He's a huge part of it. He's going to finish ahead of RB26, in my opinion.
Yeah. I agree. And then we'll skip the last running back. We'll talk about him on our next show. It's Miles Gaskin. I don't want to talk about him. Shout out Jared Dokes. Okay, so let's move on to a few other positions. A couple quarterbacks here. Ryan Tannehill going overall 59, quarterback 17. And then Derek Carr overall 97, quarterback 26. Both of these major buys for me of these players at those prices. That's absurd for Tannehill. I understand being a little nervous because Arthur Smith is gone, but I don't think that's why he's being drafted there. I think it's just he's criminally underrated constantly, and he has QB1 potential.
He's secure in his position too. He's not going anywhere, so you can be locked into him for the next 3 years as a basically borderline QB1 every season and every week for sure. We have him ranked a good amount higher than 17 for obvious reasons. He's very, very good. This is a good offense. Yes, they lost Corey Davis. Yes, they lost Jonnu Smith. I still think that they're pretty lethal on offense. And Tannehill's a huge part of that. And he runs the ball, which people forget about Tannehill for some reason. He's a good running quarterback. He doesn't do it often, but he gets the job done when he needs to. He's going to finish higher. Derek Carr, I understand why he's a little bit lower for people because they're nervous about the situation. You have 2 stud running backs now. They don't know what's going on with the front office, with Gruden, with Carr for the future. So in a 3-year window, I get why he's slightly lower. But I think for this year and most likely next year, he's a Raider, and he is going to absolutely kill it. And he's going to be higher than quarterback 26 because he has been the quiet assassin for a while, and he's going to keep that going. And he gets a healthy wide receiver room. He gets John Brown added in to replace Nelson fucking Aguilar, who was his second best receiver behind Waller. Ruggs is going to be good again. He's going to be better this year. I think Edwards will actually be a presence at some point, and third and Renfro is obviously going to murder third downs every game. So he is going to be lethal. And with the line being kind of retooled, maybe that spells to the running backs not being as vital part of the offense, and they go on more 50-50 than 60-40, and that's just more points for Carr.
Yeah. Yeah, and at some point last year, I looked at Derek Carr's ranking, saw he was like QB 14, and I said, what the fuck? So that's in his range of outcomes, like you said, for the next 2 years. So I'm in on Carr. These are definitely quarterbacks that I wish I would have gotten in my last startup, but instead I have Drew Lock, which we'll talk about here shortly. For tight ends, just very quickly, because we're running out of time on this segment, George Kittle is the tight end 1 off the board right now, which 31 overall. So he's, back end 2 or early 3rd.
No, it's 3rd.
Well, 30 if you have a 12-team league, dude.
That's 24. It's middle of the 3rd.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Or early 3rd. That's what I meant. Fuck it. I don't care. I'm tired. Which that doesn't sound bad, right? Until you realize Travis Kelce is going behind him I had a discourse about okay. Travis Kelce.
The reason it's okay is because Kelsey's going 37 overall. So if it was 31 and 45, this would be a terrible ADP so far. That's you're doing a bad job. They're very close together. That means
they are.
They both should go in the 3rd round or end of 2nd. In my opinion, you have a conversation about the end of 1st because of positional value. If it's tight end premium, they should probably go at the back end of the 1st or mid to early 2nd. I'm okay with these ADPs. I think it should. I wish it was 31, 32 because that's what it deservedly should be. But people are taking the age in consideration. But guess what? Kittle gets hurt. Kelce doesn't. So
I know you don't. You have these flipped. So you agree with this ADP, right? Kittle first. He's your tight end.
Don't put words in my mouth. Let me.
I think he is.
He is for me, and it's because I think I think we get a full healthy season of Kittle this year. I think he outperforms Kelce.
Okay, that's fair.
It's by the tiniest margin. If they're the same, and he's what 4 or 5 years younger, 6 years younger, something in that range. I don't fucking remember. That's huge. Yeah.
See, to me, and we'll talk about it on the tight end episode, so I don't want to spoil that episode.
I also would have put out Trey Lance factors into that. If it was just Jimmy G and they picked at 12, I think it'd be Kelce easy for me. But I love Trey Lance, so
yeah, I do too, and we'll talk about him here shortly as well. The only other thing that I want to note about the tight end ADPs right now, major sell. I'm a Kyle Pitts guy. I get it. I love Kyle Pitts. I still will draft him 103 in Superflex leagues. I will draft him before Trey Lance. I think it's a little crazy now that he's in that situation, but I'd still do it because fuck it. I'm sticking to my guns. Kyle Pitts is going ahead of Darren Waller by 2 whole rounds, or close to 2 whole rounds, depending. So that's absurd. Don't do that. I understand there's an age discrepancy, but, and I guess, If people knew that Julio wasn't going to be there and you knew that Kyle Pitts was going to get 150 fucking targets, sure. Yeah, absolutely. Darren Waller, you can make an argument that Darren Waller should be drafted ahead of Kittle, in my opinion. Like, I think that's where I'm at with Waller because we know he's the number one target for that team, and they didn't change that. And if anything, like we talked about with Carr, they lost Aguilar. They lost their number one wide receiver, technically, which is gross to say. So that's where, like, I love Kyle Pitts. I get that he's 20 years old, or however the hell old he is, 21. I don't remember now. It's been a long couple of months, but I would draft Darren Waller ahead of him. So I am selling that ADP.
Yeah, Darren Waller's hit count right now is like he's 24, 25, 26, somewhere, because he basically wasn't drafted or was South route, whatever, and then he didn't play. He was a practice squad, and then he had drug issues, and then he just came on 2 years ago with the Raiders. That's his story. So he really didn't start playing NFL football until 2 years ago. So he's got plenty in the tank. He just got a huge extension. He is going to be killing it for the Raiders. He is their building block, him and Josh Jacobs. And fuck. No. I'm trying, like, I wouldn't say Carr, but it's not Carr. So Ruggs, maybe Abram. It's not great over there. I'm sorry.
It's not. It's really not that great.
It shouldn't be that big a discrepancy is what we're saying. If you do put Pitts ahead of him because you think Julio's gone, I can get behind it to an extent, but it should be like 60, 62, like we were saying with Kittle and Kelsey. It shouldn't be that big a discrepancy. And the last tight end I wanted to bring up was Irv Smith Jr., who we both have huge hopes for this year. He's going 117 overall in tight end 12. It's not like that's egregious. It's still a tight end 1. But with Rudolph gone, I think he is the wide receiver 3 in this offense. I think he thrives this year once he's got a full season now. I really expect big things from him. And I brought it up because between 71 and 117, there's 7 tight ends that go, or 6 tight ends that go after Waller's gone and before Smith. I think if you don't get one of the top 4, I'm very comfortable waiting to 117 and getting Irv Smith, is my point. I love Noah Fant. I wish he was getting picked here like he was last year. I love all those other guys. I'd rather have Irv Smith than Hunter Henry or Jonnu Smith. It's that whole conversation. Same with Evan Ingram. Irv Smith is criminally undervalued right now. He is going to be the steal, the next thrive. We called Jonnu and Fant, me and you, last year. I obviously won that bet, but who's counting? And I think Irv isn't as big of a discrepancy this year getting to the tight end 1, but I think he's the guy for me this year.
I can get behind it. I do love my boy Zach Davidson. I think he's going to be a stud, and he's going to be their tight end 2. So he's going to be I think he'll be like a knockoff Rudolph, but that means that Irv Smith does take that step.
They're going to run 2 tight end sets. Davidson can do all right. There's no question in that. I just think Irv thrives.
Yeah, I hope he gets more touchdown work.
Yes.
Because they love their receivers and they loved Rudolph. So we'll see.
They love Thielen and Rudolph in the red zone. I think Irv takes over the Rudolph, hopefully, and that's going to be huge for him. That alone will be the difference between him being tight end 16, 18, and him being tight end 6.
Yeah. All right. It is time to get into our Dynasty quarterback rankings. Now, shout out to our boy Adam, who helped put together these rankings as well. He is not with us, obviously, on this show. He might be in the comments. Adam, if you're here, please say hi. But let's get right into them. So we are going to go 50 down to 1. Obviously, we're not going to talk extensively about everyone. But I'm going to run you through 50 through 41. So Jamie Newman at 50, Tyrod Taylor at 49, Nick Foles at 48, Jacoby Brissett at 47, Nick Mullins at 46, Dwayne Haskins at 45, Taylor Heineke at 44, Gardner Minshew at 43, Kyle Trask at 42, and Kellen Mond at 41. We'll also include our 40th, which is Taysom Hill, because that's pretty much the only guy that we're going to talk about here. Randy, other than Taysom, is there anything you want to say about any of these guys that really have no value whatsoever?
Kellen Mond, Trask, Minshew, Heineke, Haskins, all are just guys that could get a shot down the road and could do well. There's not a clear path necessarily, at least in the next 2 years.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. So Taysom Hill, the reason he's at 40 is because I'm an asshole. And so I do want to put that out there. I have him ranked at 50, and I didn't even want to rank him there. I just couldn't find someone else that I wanted to put there. Taysom Hill, and this is funny because I tweeted about this today. Taysom Hill is not a quarterback to me, and he's not a good enough tight end to take snaps away from Adam Troutman and freaking Nick Vannett. Is Nick Vannett on that team? I think he is. So Taysom Hill is going to get his Taysom Hill role. He's going to be the backup to Jameis Winston, in my opinion. And then he's done. Like, his contract is voidable after this year. And so what value does Taysom Hill have to your team, other than, I will admit, that he's a flyer add to your team if you can get him late? Randy, I know we disagree a little bit here.
Well, the main disagreement, I think, we both don't think if he was just a pure tight end, he's going to score enough to be like a top 30 quarterback. That's pretty clear. I have him ranked at 30. I have Winston at 29. I have that distinction because I love Winston. I think he can thrive. Hopefully he's got all the kinks worked out, but I'm not going to bet on that yet. And because of that, Winston, we've seen it before with Tampa. He could easily screw up enough that Taysom takes over for a few games, or he takes over halfway through the year or something. So I have to keep that distinction so close. I hate it, but Taysom will always put up points no matter what. Jameis won't. If Jameis gets pulled, obviously he's not going to get any points. Taysom will always get points because he plays both, and he is a running quarterback more than actually being an actual quarterback. So if he's going to probably get at least 2 to 3 points a game, where as a fucking backup quarterback tight end, rotational player, where Jameis has a chance to get no points half the year. That's my only reason for him being that high. Also, it's just other guys that I just don't believe in. And I believe that they could lose their job or they could just suck. And it's also Dynasty. So Taysom has a path to have being a Saint for the rest of his career, the next 5-6 years, where there's a couple older guys ahead of him on this list. So
it's all fair. I just think that
your points are perfectly valid. He's not a good quarterback, but this is also fantasy.
You always have to remind me of that.
You could be a shit quarterback and still be a decent fantasy quarterback because you run the ball.
That's true. All right, let's talk about 39 through 30. So at 39, we have Mitchell Trubisky, 38, Davis Mills, 37, Marcus Mariota, 36, Teddy Bridgewater, 35, Andy Dalton, 34, Ryan Fitzpatrick, 33, Ben Roethlisberger, 32, Jimmy Garoppolo, 31, Jordan Love, and then 30, Cam Newton. First, I want to say Ben Roethlisberger obviously has value for 2021. In my opinion, he's going to be a top performer. He's going to be a QB2. The reason he's low in my rankings, and I think he might even be lower than our consensus or close to it, is because you get 1 year from him and that's it. I don't really want that. I mean, I have some shares. I'd love to get rid of them as soon as he blows up for 500 yards one day. But that's the one thing I wanted to speak about there. Andy Dalton, backup quarterback for the Chicago Bears. As of today, I don't give a fuck what Matt Nagy says. Not much value. Randy, what else stands out about this group?
Biggest thing with this group, lots of veterans, older guys on the last legs, as in Ben Roethlisberger, Fitzpatrick, and then you have questionable future guys, as in Cam Newton, who, again, should be good this year. Most likely will get all the starts. Should be a QB2 to QB1. But he sucked at times last year. and he could lose the job after this year. Most likely will lose the job after this year. Jimmy G could lose the job mid-season. Andy Dalton could lose the job preseason. Fitzpatrick, I don't know if he plays after this year. Big Ben should have played this year. Bridgewater probably won't start, but has a future as a perennial backup. Mariota, same thing. Davis Mills could be a starting quarterback, but because he's on a team with a guy that's a god and Deshaun Watson and a little bit of a pervert, he's listed low. Obviously, if Deshaun's traded, he shoots up rankings. He just has to.
Yeah.
What?
God, I tried to hold in that laugh and I couldn't.
I got you though. I got you.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, I think for me, Jordan Love has more value than this immediately if he starts.
Well, yeah, there's everyone of this group. The only guys that have a chance to shoot into a starting spot are Jordan Love and Davis Mills. If either do because of trades, they are top 30.
Easy.
Without a question, yeah. I don't know where they fall, but they're top 30, probably around that like 25, 26 range. But it's just how it is. That you're starting quarterback on good offenses too.
Yeah.
Oh, Davis Mills not, but it's such a bad team. He's going to have to throw 50 times. So
yeah, it's the Jared Goff effect,
exactly.
which which we're going to be talking about in this next grouping. So 29 through 20, 29 Drew Lock, 28 Jameis Winston, 27 Daniel Jones, 26 Mac Jones, 25 Jared Goff, 24 Matt Ryan, 23 Tom Brady, 22 Carson Wentz, 21 Kirk Cousins, 20 Zach Wilson. What stands out to you about this little chunk?
So it's the same thing as before. Some older guys or guys that are on the last legs of deals. So Kirk Cousins is a little bit of both. He's a little bit older and on last legs of deals. Carson, obviously, on a hit-or-miss contract, on a hit-or-miss season. Brady played 1 or 2 more years, most likely. But he's old, so he can't be that high, even if he is going to be a QB2 with QB1 weeks. Matt Ryan, same thing. There was discussions of them getting rid of him this year. So I think that's pretty clear about what's going to happen. He's got his contract, and then he's probably done. And that's, 2 years? So he's got to be lower. Jared Goff, same thing. He's a young guy with question marks. And that's why Zach Wilson, we don't know how the situation for New York will work out. It hasn't worked out in the past. Hopefully it does for him. Jared Goff could be a 1-year quarterback, could be 2-year quarterback for the Dolphins, could be the next 10 years. We don't fucking know right now. I particularly think Jared Goff is pretty decent. I don't think he's anything great. I think he's a very serviceable quarterback. I think he's a perennial QB2 if he stays in the Lions. But they're a bad team with shit receivers. So Daniel Jones could lose his job next year or the year after. Mac Jones won't play this year. He's a second-round talent.
Yeah.
We'll see how – and it's the same thing situationally with New England. They were the 15th best team or the 15th worst team in the NFL this last season. It was a terrible season for them. Hopefully they turn it around. But Bill was old. I don't know how the outlook looks for Mac if Bill's gone. There's a lot of question marks in that future. Question marks for sure in Jameis. Question marks for sure in Locke. So a lot of old and then questions.
Yeah. The one note I do want to make here about this group, these are guys that I would target. Jared Goff, one of my trade targets. You know why? Because that regime, I do believe that they believe that Jared Goff is the answer at quarterback for them. Jared Goff has shown that he's of course, it was part of the McVay scheme. I understand that he had a lot of things going well for him. But, again, like you mentioned earlier, this is fantasy football, and that's a starting quarterback that I know is probably going to start for 2 to 3 years. Same thing with, like, Tom Brady. I never thought I'd say this. I thought I was going to write him off. I'm ready to go get him because I think I have 2 years out of him, and I think he outperforms this ranking even for the next 2 years. So
at least for this year, he's going to finish anywhere from 16 to 10.
Yeah.
Maybe slightly higher even.
Yeah.
I mean, they have so much potential to score a dick ton of points in that offense too. Not so much for Goff, but he's going to probably have to throw 50 times half the games.
Yeah.
So
for sure. Yeah. at least 50. It's going to be crazy. All right, let's move on to our next group, which we're going to go 19 to 13 and then talk about our Dynasty QB1s. 19, Derek Carr. 18, Matthew Stafford. 17, Jalen Hurts. 16, Aaron Rodgers. 15, Baker Mayfield. 14, Tua Tagovailoa. 13, Ryan Tannehill. And so we talked about two of these guys in Tannehill and Carr. So obviously our consensus aligned more with where I'm ranking Carr, but still higher than where consensus is, or ADP is where people are fucking drafting him. You know what I'm trying to say, damn it.
Yeah, he's Carr's ADP 26, QB 26.
Right.
So,
and we've got him at 19. So there's a value for you. Matthew Stafford being this low, I think is because he burned us a little bit last year in that he wasn't consistent. He didn't have the best year, and now he's going to a new system. In my opinion, you have to be a little cautious.
Carr, I think this is probably perfect, mainly because of the question marks past the next year or two, where he ends up, if he stays, if he thrives on the Raiders. Hopefully he does. But there's a good chance he does it. The coach could be fired. His GM could be fired. He could be released or not re-signed. There's a lot of question marks there. Stafford, injury-prone tag now. Whether it's deserved or not, he has the tag in fantasy players' eyes. And the Rams have they're in a 2 to 3 year window to win a Super Bowl. Stafford's in a 2 to 3 year window as well. I know we only look at that for the most part for Dynasty, but I think deservedly so. He falls down the pecking order because of that. There's some young guys in some better situations, in my opinion. They're a little bit higher. And judging by how the Rams have drafted the last few years, this is deserved. Jalen Hurts, a lot of people have him a lot higher than this. There's major question marks with him. He might not be a starting quarterback next year. I think that probably won't happen, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, we know how much I love Jalen Hurts. He was my QB4 in his draft class. I had him ranked ahead of Herbert. I was dumb. I'm sorry. But Jalen Hurts for fantasy is going to be a cheat code. Shout out to Jeff. If you're still in here, Jeff, hashtag Konami QB. He's going to run the fucking ball. He is. I'm not going to compare him to Lamar Jackson. I don't know that he's as good of a thrower as Lamar Jackson, and that's saying something. But he's dynamic with the ball in his hands, and they are going to run RPOs, and they're going to run screen games, and he's going to be productive, in my opinion. I think he's able to keep that job past this year, too.
There's a very good chance. I'm just saying with those kind of question marks, with only a small sample size, that's why he stays this low. Rodgers, a lot of question marks right now. If he's on the field with the Packers, there's no question marks. He's finishing 15-5, somewhere in there. I mean, let's be real. I can't narrow it down past then. He if it's the playoffs, he's finishing about 50, but it's not. So he's doing okay. Baker is going to finish here every year or slightly higher. So this is fair. Tua, I don't know where else you could put him. He's got some running ability, so I think he deservedly should go above Baker. It's a more explosive offense, possibly, at least passing-wise. So I think that also is why he's slightly ahead for us. But there's probably more question marks on him than there is for Baker. So
for sure. But so my thing with differentiating those two, Tua needs to prove it. I think he will. And I think he throws more often, so I can get behind this ranking. Baker is just going to be ultra efficient. I think Baker throws over 30 touchdowns this year, so I think he finishes higher than this. But there's also uncertainty about if he's with the Browns. I mean, technically, I think they're going to re-sign him, and all signs point to that. Andrew Berry's backing him. But, I mean, some people still think that Baker isn't deserving of a big contract extension. So what happens when he leaves there?
Does he deserve to be a top 3 paid quarterback? No. But
no, top 10.
Has he earned the right to be the Browns quarterback of the future, the next decade? Yeah, probably.
Absolutely. Yeah, in my opinion. Tua, same. Tua's going to do the same thing this year, though. People are writing off Tua for no reason. Tua's going to be very good, in my opinion.
if they would have stayed at 3, this would be a worry.
Yeah.
Because they could have easily taken Fields or Lance, and this would have been chaos. But they didn't. They put all the faith in Tua. They gave him another fucking weapon. I wish they actually helped the offensive line better, but here we are. They didn't help the running back. They didn't help
too.
Well, they brought in tight ends. They didn't help the running back position, but I like somewhat of what they have in the running back game already. But it also means that Tua is probably going to throw more, so he should be a little higher.
Yeah.
And Tannehill, always criminally undervalued, most of the time QB1. Dynasty reasons, though, a couple of rookies beat him out here.
Yeah, for sure. And with good reason, so let's get right into it. Our 12 through 7, Trey Lance at 12, Joe Burrow at 11, Justin Fields at 10, Trevor Lawrence at 9. I do not condone this ranking. I oppose. 8, Deshaun Watson, 7, Russell Wilson. My first note from this, if Deshaun Watson isn't an air humper, then he's going to be ranked higher than this for me, even though that offense sucks.
He's top 5 if we know he plays.
Exactly. But we don't. There's a lot of uncertainty. I did see that his deposition or whatever the fuck he's going to have to do is after the season, so he should play in 2021. This is about where I would expect him to finish this year. But overall, Deshaun Watson is a good asset as long as he's not an ass. Now going back to Trey Lance at 12, some people think that's a little too rich. Some people have him ranked ahead of Justin Fields, though. So I think we're a little different there.
Situationally, I would rank Lance over Fields. I trust the 49ers organization way more than I do the Bears.
It's fair, but
talent-wise, long-term talent-wise, Lance has the edge too. Like surrounding talent, supporting cast. Sorry, we both have Fields ranked higher as actual quarterback prospect, but that doesn't matter. I had Lance ranked ahead of Fields in our dynasty rankings.
Yeah.
I would take Lawrence, Lance, Najee, Pitts, Fields is my dynasty rookie top 5. Super flex.
You're crazy.
I'm just telling you, if he's in the San Fran offense and running, good God.
Yeah. No, I don't hate it, and I've said before, I just said on a guest appearance, Trey Lance might have the highest ceiling out of all of the quarterbacks in this draft class, outside of course, Kyle Trask. Just kidding. 11, Joe Burrow. I don't have a ton to say about this. I think this is rich for Joe Burrow. I have him somewhere around like 15 to 16.
I have him at 8. I love Joe Burrow's talent. I think he's an immediate player. Obviously, the line didn't get much better. So, and the injury, I think it's deservedly that consensus-wise he ranked here. I think I would put him just ahead of Fields for the fact that we know it's his team right now. It should be Fields' team in Chicago, but we'll see how it goes. And I don't trust the development there. Burrow, I trust the development. They're putting all the talent around him. I'm just saying.
I think I'm to the point where I trust Matt Nagy more than I trust Zach Taylor, though. And so that's where it's kind of like a Cliff Kingsbury situation where I think Taylor needs to fucking prove it this year. But
there's a good chance both those guys are fired.
That's true. Yeah. And hey, the race for Joe Brady, I think he'd probably go to Cincinnati though to play with Burrow or to coach Burrow. But
Burrow and Chase, yeah,
that'd be fucked. All right, and then Justin Fields right behind Trevor Lawrence. Again, you guys know that I rank Justin Fields ahead of Trevor Lawrence, but every consensus list you'll ever look at will have Trevor Lawrence, the number 1 overall draft pick, ahead of Justin Fields, and I don't hate it. I understand it.
You were actually the highest on Trevor Lawrence for us here in the rankings.
This is shocking.
Really? I will say Adam actually ranked Fields ahead of Lawrence. Fields' rankings, you gave him 7th. I gave him 15th. And Adam gave him 9th. Lawrence, it was 9, 11, 11. Oh, I'll never forget. So it was what?
Yeah.
It's very, very fucking close. Lawrence is going to be given every chance to be the god people think he is.
Yeah. And then last note, Russell Wilson outside of our top 6.
Age.
Yeah.
Age.
Yeah. That's
he's
pretty
30.
I have
He's 32.
I have him at 8. So all right, let's get into
I think our oldest top 5 is like 24 or something.
Yeah.
It's something like that.
It makes sense. Yeah. That's how you dynasty. Although don't put a ton of stock into age. Again, Russell Wilson probably in the next 2 to 3 years, still very good. But we saw some of his flaws last year. So let's get into our top 6 though. At 6, Justin Herbert, 5, Lamar Jackson, 4, Kyler Murray, 3, Dak Prescott, 2, Josh Allen, 1, Patrick Mahomes. Do you have? I'm pretty sure. Do you have Herbert that high? I think you have him 1 down.
Mine goes Mahomes, Allen, Prescott, Murray, Lamar, Wilson, Herbert.
Yeah, and then mine goes exactly like our consensus list because so does Adams. So
well, you have Fields ahead of Wilson, unfortunately. But
yeah,
there's for me, I still give the nod for Wilson over Herbert. It's just that's just how I feel for the next 2 or 3 years, and then the top 5 has to be the top 5 in my opinion. Lamar, I think, deservedly so at the bottom, only because he hasn't made the improvements that we want.
Yeah,
we all know he's an absolute god with his legs. He's the best running quarterback we've ever seen. But no, he's the best. I don't think
Vic, dude.
But Vic even says it's Lamar.
It's
Vic
I guess
was a better
Vic's
passer. Vic was a better passer.
Yeah. The one discrepancy, and it's about the guy that you can see on your screen if you're watching us live, Dak Prescott. So the thing about Dak Prescott, he was on pace for 5,000 yards last year, 6,000 yards, something absurd.
Ridiculous. The quarterback won.
Yeah, he was going to be the QB1. And so then he gets hurt, and we kind of forget how good Dak is every year, right? I don't know where he's being drafted. I don't know what his ADP is. Dak Prescott is a very, very good fantasy asset. He still has weapons around him. He still has a very good offense. In general, with Zeke and Tony Pollard back there, and shout out to Jacob, who thinks Tony Pollard is better than Zeke. That's craziness, but whatever, Jacob. But yeah, so I love Dak. I try to get Dak everywhere. I have some shares of Dak, and I'm happy about it. Now, ranking Dak over Kyler, for me, it's right. Kyler definitely has rushing upside. Kyler also is very inconsistent as a passer, in my opinion.
Dak has become consistent, and he still runs, and I believe he will this year as well. So I looked it up quick for us. Mahomes is 1 in the 1.7. Kyler's 2, 2.9. Josh Allen 3, pick 4. Lamar 4, pick 5. Trevor Lawrence 5, pick 8. Herbert 6, 8.4. Dak is 7th at pick 10 in Superflex startups. I don't hate most of this. Trevor Lawrence is being overdrafted. It's just true.
Yes.
But then it follows the top 12 finishes: Burrow, Wilson, Lance, Fields, Rodgers for sleeper startup Superflex.
Yeah. See, Dak being that low, that's kind of what I'm talking about. So now you can get a value in Dak Prescott.
I think is that his floor?
If he's healthy, yeah.
I'm assuming they all play all their games. That's kind of what I'm going with here. And I think his floor is probably like 7 or 8, and his ceiling is 1. Mahomes does not have the stranglehold on QB1 that he once had. Josh Allen, rightfully so by a lot of people, is being touted as their Dynasty QB1. Kyler is as well by some people. I think Dak should be in that conversation. This top 5 is fucking ridiculous, in my opinion. If you could land any of these top 5, which it sounds like you need to pick in the top 10 picks of your 12-team rookie draft or whatever to get one of these. But I think if you get any of these top 4 for sure, I think you're locked in. I think Lamar is the same thing, but I definitely want to see some passing improvement, accuracy-wise at least. I thought it would happen last year. I was a champion for him. It didn't happen. I hope it does this year. And besides that, you're getting a bargain at quarterback this year.
Yeah. And my thing with Lamar, I think he automatically gets better just because of the weapons that they've now surrounded him with. And so I know he still has the accuracy issues, and people argue tooth and nail that Lamar's an accurate passer because his completion percentage is higher than what you would expect. He is not. Accuracy is not placement. He is not a good placer of the football, I guess.
Yeah. Well, that's what the Hollywood Brown, his catch rate last year was like 51% of his passes. But of catchable balls, it's like 89%.
Yeah.
It's something stupid like that. Like, that's Lamar. And I was preaching it during the season. There was plenty of times where he has an incredible arm. Like he has the cannon of Vic. If he just taps into that accuracy, Lamar will be the best overall, just pure athlete quarterback we've seen.
Yeah.
Obviously it's close with Mahomes, who's obviously a great athlete, but Hollywood is viewed as a dumpster fire by a lot of people. We just saw people loving his value. That's fucking facts. He is going to be incredible. Sure, he may end up being the wide receiver 2 for the team, but doesn't mean he can't kill it if Lamar can just fix some deep accuracy. Hollywood Brown would have been a wide receiver 2 last year. Easy.
Yeah, for sure.
He would have had 6 more touchdowns, at least.
Yeah. Okay, so our top 12 together: Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Dak Prescott, Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Joe Burrow, Trey Lance. A lot of young guys, a lot of proven top performers. You know, I get killed for not posting consensus takes all the time. These are as consensus as they come, other than Dak Prescott, baby. So stop yelling at me. And it helps because it is a consensus list, and Randy and Adam evened me out. So
thank God.
Yeah. No, my quarterback rankings aren't that far off of this, but
no.
All right, that will do it for this episode of The Cut. I am so glad to be back. I can't wait to talk through. I believe our running backs will be the next episode next week, and are we starting our division?
Yes, we haven't picked a division. We'll pick it during this week and figure it out, but it'll be running backs 50-1 and one of the division breakdowns. So we're gonna start that process, get it moving. I'm excited for next week. Obviously, busy week next week as well. I'm going to hate Monday night. I will hate it because I work like 6 a.m. to 3, and then have to stay until 10:30 for this. But for the show, I'm happy to do it. I will need to be drinking, but that's fine.
Yeah, I'll be drinking bangs, I'm sure.
That's it.
Yeah, because I'm a psychopath. So again, make sure you guys follow us at The Cut FFB. Follow our YouTube, search The Cut FFB. Will be the first video on there. Don't forget to tune in live every Monday night at 10:30. We go about an hour and 15, so you can join us at any time after 10:30, and we'll probably still be live. This is new. It's exciting. We would love to interact with you guys. Thank you guys to everyone who dropped a comment, and we were able to interact with you guys there. It's a good time. And if you guys are listening to the audio version of the podcast, hop on YouTube, hop on Twitter, hop in our Facebook group if you want to join us for the live shows. Obviously, this episode will be up as a podcast in the next hour or so. So, Randy, do you have anything to add before we bounce?
Excited to be back.
Yeah, for sure.
We're on pace for this because of work in the show. This will be the busiest month of my life coming up, but I'm happy to continue to produce this content and hopefully continue to interact on Monday nights. And thank you, everyone still listens Tuesday for the podcast. Obviously, not everyone can watch. They have to listen because they travel and it's easier at work, whatever. We love everyone that comes and supports any content either way. Just happy to be back.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be an exciting summer full of tons and tons of fantasy and football and draft and all of the above. We are excited to be back on our normal schedule. We will be, and I don't know if we talked about this before, but we will be one episode a week for a little while here. And then as the season gets closer, we'll ramp back up to 2 and then probably 3 because, again, we're psychopaths, especially me.
Yeah,
for sure.
It'll be 3 at least during season.
Yeah. Also, tune into my other podcast on Tuesdays, 9:30, the Debbie Royale. It's fun. We talk more college football than we do NFL football, so you get my dumbass talking about all the kinds of football. Pretty soon I'll have a freaking CFL podcast, or XFL. Let's do it, Randy. I
didn't say no, which is stupid.
I know.
Why did I say no?
Oh man. All right. That'll do it for us. For Randy Hall, I am Christian Williams. We will talk to you guys next Monday at 10:30. Later.